A few years ago, I have built this fence in our backyard. If you do not notice anything wrong with it just yet, then I need to mention that this side that you see is on the inside of the property. And as you are watching right now, there are at least a few people among you wondering why I built it this way. What I mean is that the frame, the supporting 4x4s and the 2x4s are on the inside. Why? Well, the same question my neighbor asked me then. What he got as an answer was a blank stare, followed by a couple of blinks, and what do you mean? That's common sense. That's how the fences are built. Now, I have not built a fence before, but I knew for certain how to build one. At the same time, he was a long-time builder, and yet I was willing to bet that the way a fence should look, it is my way. And I had all the reasons on my side. It is easier for a thief to climb over the fence if you leave the frame on the other side, on the outside for him, you know. Also, isn't it better that your house looks prettier on the outside? By the way, that's why you don't wear clothes inside out, with the seams visible on the exterior. Isn't that right? To these arguments, he also had his counter-arguments. I want to have the smoother side on the inside, he said. I want to see the nicer part when I relax in my yard. Now, the reason for our little dispute here is that both of us wanted to build a fence according to our common sense. The only question that remains is, which common sense? Yours or mine? Growing up in a different society than my neighbors, I have never ever seen a fence with the insides out. If someone would do such a thing, everyone else would wonder out loud, what's wrong with that person? That was the common sense of building a fence out there. Here there are rather more relaxed guidelines on that. Anything can pass the test for a fence. And that's simply exasperating. There needs to be a proper way to build a fence. Have you ever heard people exclaiming with a bit of irritation in their voice, "It's just common sense. Why don't they get it?" Yes, I bet you have heard it. And even said it yourself when some things that are obvious for you seem to be rocket science for others. Why is this happening? Because a group of people in certain social contexts accumulate values, ideas, and behaviors in a common pool, and this becomes the so-called common sense. As a result, individuals of that group act naturally according to common habits, using this set of unwritten rules as an obvious guide that does not need to be questioned. The truth of the matter is that the common sense is not common at all. But is there such a thing? A unifying common sense for all humans? It turns out that there is. In Romans 1:19-20 it says, "Because that which is known about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes, His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse." In here it says that there is a common sense among all people worldwide, a common understanding about God. There are a few things that anyone can gather just by looking at the surrounding creation. Those things are God's eternal power and His divine nature. The psalmist beautifully expresses his awe inspired by God's infinite creating power that is reflected in the universe. Psalm 8, verses 1, 3, and 4. "Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth, who have displayed your splendor above the heavens. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have ordained, what is man that you take thought of him?" No matter how strong, powerful, or intelligent one is, the result of flexing their muscle, clenching their fist or teeth is hilarious at best when compared with the grandeur of the universe. When you think about it, the power, the knowledge, and intelligence necessary to create and keep alive the galaxies, their host of planets, and life itself, it is simply overwhelming. It is exactly what the Bible calls the eternal power of God. And this eternal power is the result of Him being of divine nature, a totally different nature than us, humans. Completely different, completely above what we are or what we can understand. The writers of the Declaration of Independence see also a few things that belong to common sense. Therefore, there is no need to demonstrate to be true. They attribute these to all men because the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. Then, they list those common sense human attributes as follows. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. For the simple fact that one exists because he or she was created by God, they absolutely have those rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Back in Romans, in chapter 1, Apostle Paul continues saying that since everyone can see the eternal power of God and His divine nature, they have no excuse rejecting Him and His authority. For even though they knew God, they did not honor Him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their speculations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools. Isn't this the ultimate mistake of the wise? To boast that he is smart and in need of no more wisdom. As a result, the smartest and wisest becomes a fool. The unteachable, the one who refuses advice, who considers himself best in everything, he is the foolish one. And that is pitiful. For such people, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. The truth that they suppress is that there is a God above each and every human. We are all limited. He is infinite. We are creatures. He is creator. Therefore, it is only normal. It is common sense for us to be accountable to Him. But many people reject this wisdom, reject Him, and make themselves the measure of all things. What God does next is what a wise parent does when he lets his stubborn child do whatever they want. They are allowed to suffer the consequences of their choices. Romans 1:28, and just as they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer, God gave them over to a depraved mind. And the consequences of their own choices are dire. And yet, unbelieving people always wonder, why did God do that? If He is such a loving God, why people suffer? You see, all existential arguments come down to questioning the character of God. And the two main questions about God are, if He is loving and caring, why do people perish? If God is just, why is there evil and injustice on the earth? And now we can get a glimpse of the wrath of God against those who suppress these self-evident truths, against the ones that do not have the real, ultimate common sense. Do you remember your irritation with people without common sense? Now take that and multiply it by 1,000. No, by 1,000,000 and millions. And what you get is God's frustration. Frustration that after He has done all that He could, after He says, "Come, let us reason together," they still refuse Him. They still reject Him. The gospel, as summarized by Paul in Romans, has nothing to do with you or me. It's not about you. It's not about me. The gospel is all about God and His character. The good news that the message of Christ brings is that the character of God is vindicated. He is both merciful and just. In Romans 3:4, Apostle Paul says that God is the one who is judged by the whole world, the entire universe. May it never be, he says. Rather, let God be found true, though every man be found a liar, as it is written, that you may be justified in your words and prevail when you are judged. Yes, the entire world judges God. God takes all the blame, and we, His creatures, are called to answer if He is righteous or not. His character is doubted. His mercy and justice are questioned. The good news that Jesus brings is that those who believe that God's character is right and just, they receive His righteousness themselves and eternal life as a result. Romans 1:17. For in it, the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, "But the righteous man shall live by faith." Even though we do not deserve it, we receive His extended righteousness and the benefits of that. That is called mercy. The world can continue to question and doubt His character, but their attempts are in vain. In the end, those who reject the character of God will receive justice. They will experience the results of their own choice. ultimately their own destruction. Mercy and justice. These two make up the currency of human relationships. When the character of God is replicated in humans, mercy and justice abounds. When the two involved in a relationship have this same common sense that God is above them and that they are accountable to Him, the relationship is strong. It does not come down to my way or the highway. It does not come down to what I think is right, because it is not about me. I am not the measure of all things. Micah 6:8 expresses this dynamic in a memorable way. He has shown you, O men, what is good, and what does the law require of you, but to do justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. There are three things mentioned here that God expects from us: to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. Did you notice the first two things? Justice and mercy. They are exactly the two attributes in question in God's character. Some would say that justice and mercy in relationships can exist without God. And it is true, up to a point. At least for a while it works. Until my common sense becomes different from your common sense, until your values and interests become different from mine. What do we do then? Whose measuring tape do we use? Mine or yours? This verse in Micah is a little pearl of wisdom that can be used in measuring practical Christianity. It reveals to us a third dimension that balances and controls the justice and mercy between people. It is the dimension above. It is not only between you and me, the two people involved. Walking humbly with your God means that you know there is always someone above you to whom you are accountable, and that keeps everyone humble and wise. In summary, the gospel is not about you and me, the humans. We only benefit out of it. The whole point of the good news is that we sure can trust the mercy and justice of a God who gives His life for His creatures. It's as simple as that. And if one believes, he receives mercy and the associated benefits. If one does not believe, he receives justice and the related payments. It is common sense after all, isn't it? But whose common sense? Yours or mine? Neither. His common sense. And that all creatures should have, because He is the Creator. Well, for some people, this is common sense. What do you think? Inside out or the seams inside? I don't know about you, but I like it the other way. What do you think? Now, that's common sense.